Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Land Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about 5x5 training. Now, somebody just asked me, is 5x5 training good? Is it effective? And I'd say of course it is, because it is strength training, and I find that acclimating your body to handling heavier poundages over many sets is very effective in gaining strength. Now, 5x5 is just one way of doing it. Some people pyramid train, some people do 7x3 or 8x2, I don't know. I mean, there's a million different ways to do it. But the real premise of 5x5 training is that you're not hitting failure when you're training, because the whole goal is to put that weight on your system and contract the muscles as much as you can without muscular failure being the weak link, but nervous system failure being the weak link. You know what I'm saying? So it's more like coordination, and the muscles just can't fire anymore, not because they don't have enough energy, but because the nervous system wears out. What you're trying to do is recruit as much motor units, those little satellites in the muscle that fire electricity through the muscle to fire the muscle. You're trying to recruit as much of those as you can, along with building more of them, and also refine the coordination, which is they're probably both really the same thing, but what you're doing is you're refining the coordination so that way you can lift heavier poundages. And then once you can lift heavier poundages, then you can go to a bodybuilding type program where you rep out with those heavier poundages, or maybe something that's not quite as heavy, but you're getting more reps and you're actually hitting muscular failure then, and that's what we know as hypertrophy. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever of strength training, and then moving back more into a bodybuilding type of system where you actually are burning out the energetic system and doing hypertrophy training. And then you may want to go back into a strength training system at some point, right? So I always have done a combination of both in my training, where I'll hit failure and then I'll do heavy weight some days, and then other days I'll just pyramid up in a certain exercise. A lot of times I've done hybrid training, really. That's really what I've done. I've usually chosen one exercise and said, okay, this is the one I'm going to concentrate more on strength in, and then the other ones I'm going to go to failure in. And that's the way that I really found training works best for me. I didn't really feel like I needed to just do strength training or just do hypertrophy training. I really combined them together in workouts in a certain way that just felt right. That's really the only way I can describe it. Because the biggest weak link I found in training was more about how frequently am I training? Am I training the right frequency and the right volume for my body? And am I eating enough and sleeping enough? Because if the eating isn't there and the sleeping isn't there, it doesn't really matter what you're doing with your training. But I found the eating and the sleeping really made a huge difference. And then if I have the right training frequency, whether I'm doing medium reps or heavy weight or lightweight or whatever, I found that that only worked if the eating and the sleeping was right, if I was eating enough protein, etc., right? So that's something I really want you to pay attention to. Make sure your sleeping and your eating is right. And then from there, you're going to find what system of training works best. And I found doing 2-day split programs or 3-day split programs really the best for me. Once I went into 4-day splits or 5-day splits, it was like too much rest in between training a body part again. So I found I almost lost touch with the muscle group, and I didn't have enough stimulus frequently enough for the body to retain that pump or to continue to adapt. So once I started training a little bit more frequently, I found that my body adapted much better for hypertrophy and for strength. So here's the other thing I want to talk to you about. Yeah, 5x5 training is great for strength, but a lot of times people think the only way you can gain strength is by going heavy all the time. And I will say I didn't really notice that. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to go moderately heavy, but you don't necessarily need to do 3-rep sets or 2-rep sets or 1-rep maxes in order to gain strength. I found by going heavy with an efficient rep range, such as 6 to 8 reps or 10 reps or 5 reps or whatever, and going in between there, like varying the rep ranges up and down, I found I gained more strength than just if I hit one type of rep range all the time, just going to the gym saying, okay, I gotta do 5-rep sets again. When I did this every single workout, I found that my strength started to go down. Now, I'm not saying that I did it in the conservative way that 5x5 training is usually done, where really you're only hitting the last set to failure. Myself, the mistake I would make in the past is that I'd go to failure right away in the first set or the second set, and all the way through I'd be hitting failure. So that's one of my major mistakes when it came down to strength training back then. But one thing I did find is that as a bodybuilder, I found it was effective for me to go close to failure in rep ranges of 6 to 10 reps and vary the rep ranges all over the place in there. And then once in a while do a 15 rep or 20 rep day. And from there, I actually gained more strength over the long run. So I didn't necessarily have to do 5x5 training to get a big bench press, because my bench press used to be pretty decent back in the day. I was over 400 pounds for a bench because before I dislocated a shoulder and that sort of thing, my bench was actually pretty good. So you don't necessarily have to do 5x5 training to have an effective amount of strength from your training. So just bear that in mind, right? It's just one technique that you can apply in your toolbox, but there are many other techniques, because one of them is just frequent training, but varying the rep ranges from, 6 reps one day, then you do 10 to 12 another day, then you do 15 to 20 reps the other day, and then you come back to 6 reps. I've found that just the frequency itself developed the coordination so effectively that I ended up putting on a lot of strength that way. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents. 5x5 training is effective, and it is useful to do for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and I encourage you to try lots of different training programs to see which works for you. But in the end, what I landed on was a higher frequency type of training and varying the rep ranges from worker to workout, and that seemed to work the best for me. Mountain. So anyway, I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalglambodybuilding.com, and thanks to the patient supporters, and take care for now.